Okay, so today we're going to be diving into a really tough case.
Yeah.
The case of Anna Maria Crocker,
Really disturbing.
a teacher's aide in Wisconsin,
Yeah,
accused of some truly horrific acts against young boys,
absolutely.
many of whom were friends with her own son.
It's a tough one.
We're talking about multiple charges,
Mm-hmm.
some carrying potential life sentences.
Yeah, and the potential impact on these victims is
Absolutely.
it's immense. This is something they could carry them for the rest of their lives.
Right, and that's what we're going to try to unpack today.
Absolutely.
Using court documents, legal perspectives to try to understand how this could happen,
Yeah.
what this means for school safety, what this means for parents.
Mm.
So let's start by just breaking down these initial accusations.
Sure.
We're talking about a 12-year-old boy
Okay.
who disclosed that Crocker, a trusted figure in his life,
Right.
assaulted him during a sleepover at her house. Yeah. Imagine the violation of trust
Oh,
in
yeah.
a child.
At that age.
To experience that in a place that should feel safe.
Yeah. And we see this often, unfortunately, this delayed disclosure.
Right.
It takes time sometimes for children to process trauma like that.
Yeah.
And there are feelings of shame and fear, and sometimes they don't even really understand what happened.
Right.
So it can prevent them from speaking up right away.
Absolutely. And it really underscores the need to create environments where kids feel empowered to talk about anything.
Absolutely.
No matter how difficult.
Exactly.
And here's where it gets even more unsettling.
Okay.
This wasn't an isolated incident.
Oh, wow.
More victims, all teenage boys, friends of Crocker's son, started coming forward with their own accounts.
Okay.
A 14-year-old boy alleges that Crocker assaulted him in a parking lot.
Oh, my gosh.
There are reports of explicit Snapchat messages
Wow.
sent to multiple boys, and even an instance where Crocker tried to force one of the victims to apologize to her for the abuse.
That is just unbelievable. And that attempt to shift the blame back onto the victim, that is classic manipulation.
It's textbook.
Textbook manipulation by predators.
Yeah.
And it's just crucial to remember that a minor legally can't consent to sexual activity.
Right, especially when coercion or force is involved.
Especially.
Right, and this detail about Crocker specifically targeting her son's friends, that's especially chilling.
It really is. I mean, it's a betrayal of the parents' trust as well.
Absolutely.
These boys probably saw her as like an extension of their friend's family.
Right.
Someone they should be able to trust.
Right.
Makes it even harder to recognize and resist that manipulation.
It makes you think, I bet every parent listening right now is thinking,
oh, yeah.
What can I do to protect my kids?
Absolutely. And you know what? The most important thing is open communication.
Yeah.
Talk to your kids.
Yeah.
Encourage them to talk about anything that makes them uncomfortable.
Even if it's difficult.
Especially if it's difficult. Yeah.
Okay, let's unpack the whole Snapchat element here.
Sure.
It seems Crocker really heavily relied on the app to communicate with these boys.
Okay.
Probably hoping that the disappearing messages feature would help cover her tracks.
Right. But here's the thing.
Yeah.
That disappearing messages feature, that might seem like a shield.
Right.
But law enforcement, they often have tools to retrieve deleted data.
Really?
Oh, yeah. So digital evidence, like texts and photos and videos.
So it's not really gone.
It can be crucial in building a case.
Wow, that's actually reassuring to know.
Yeah.
This case really raises a big question that I'm sure is on everyone's mind.
What's that?
Could the school have done something to prevent this?
That's the big question, isn't it?
What kind of liability might they face?
Oh, it's too early to say, for sure.
Okay.
School liability in these cases is complex.
Right.
Wisconsin law, like a lot of states,
right,
requires proving that the school knew or should have known about the abuse and failed to act.
Right, but that's the thing. It's like even one missed red flag is one too many.
It is. And, and we don't know the specifics of this case yet, but often these investigations reveal patterns of behavior or incidents that, in hindsight, should have been cause for concern.
Yeah.
And it's a heartbreaking reality.
Yeah.
But it really emphasizes the need for school staff to be vigilant and trained to recognize even subtle signs of potential abuse.
This whole case is just such a sobering reminder.
It is.
That predators often operate in plain sight, exploiting trust, manipulating situations to their advantage.
Right.
What are some things that parents and really anyone who interacts with children should be looking out for?
Well, there are some common warning signs.
Okay.
But it's important to remember that every situation's different. Abusers don't fit a single profile.
Right.
But some red flags. An adult showing an unusual interest in a particular child.
Okay.
Isolating them from their peers.
Okay.
Giving them gifts.
Right.
Changes in the child's behavior.
Yeah.
Becoming withdrawn.
Yeah.
Anxious.
Right.
Exhibiting sexualized behavior that's inappropriate for their age.
Right.
Those can all be signs that something's wrong.
It's a lot to process.
It is.
But understanding these warning signs is a crucial first step.
Absolutely.
In prevention.
Yes.
We have to remember that protecting children
Yeah.
is everyone's responsibility.
Absolutely. If you see something that seems off,
Right.
trust your instincts and report it.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to speak up. You might be wrong,
Right.
but you might also be saving a child from harm.
This is already so much to digest, and we've only just begun to scratch the surface of this case.
I know, it's a lot.
Stay tuned for part 2, where we'll delve deeper into the potential legal consequences for Crocker and explore the resources available to help victims and their families navigate this incredibly difficult journey.
Important stuff.
Absolutely. Welcome back to our deep dive into this really heavy case.
Yeah.
And, I think it's important to acknowledge up front, this is heavy stuff.
It is.
It's natural to feel all sorts of emotions as we unpack these details, but it's important we don't shy away from these conversations.
I completely agree.
By understanding how these situations unfold, we can become more informed, more empowered to protect children in our lives.
And the more we talk about this, the more we break down that stigma and create a culture where victims feel safe coming forward and potential abusers know they won't get away with it.
Absolutely. So let's dive into the legal side of things here.
Okay.
Crocker is facing some extremely serious charges here in Wisconsin.
Can you walk us through what kind of penalties she might be looking at?
Sure. So the charges against Crocker include first-degree child sexual assault, possession of child pornography, and sexual exploitation of a child.
Wow.
And each of these charges carries its own potential penalties. But given the severity of the charges and the number of victims, we're talking she could be facing decades in prison.
Decades. Wow, that's a long time.
Yeah.
Are there any specific sentencing guidelines for these types of offenses in Wisconsin?
There is some discretion for judges.
Okay.
But Wisconsin has pretty structured sentencing guidelines, especially for serious crimes like these. Judges will consider things like the defendant's criminal history, the vulnerability of the victims, any evidence of remorse or lack thereof. But even with all of those factors considered, the potential for a lengthy prison sentence is very real.
This case has definitely grabbed the attention of the media.
How might this publicity impact the trial?
Well, media coverage can be a double-edged sword. On the one hand, it raises awareness about child sexual abuse. It can empower other victims to come forward. But there's also a potential downside. Extensive media coverage can make it hard to find impartial jurors.
People who haven't already formed opinions about the case.
Exactly. And, it can also put pressure on both the prosecution and the defense, influencing their strategies and decisions.
Jury selection is going to be a crucial part of this trial then.
Oh, absolutely.
I imagine the court will be extra careful.
Yeah, they'll likely question potential jurors very carefully about their exposure to the case through the media and assess their ability to set aside any preconceived notions and really just focus on the evidence.
Wow, let's shift gears a bit here and talk about the victims and their families.
Of course.
This experience, it must be just incredibly traumatic for them. What kind of support is available?
Thankfully, there is a network of organizations and resources dedicated to supporting victims of child sexual abuse and their families.
Good.
These resources offer a wide range of services. Including therapy support groups, legal advocacy, medical care.
So crucial. Healing from this type of trauma
It is.
It is a journey, not a destination.
It takes time.
Yeah.
It takes professional guidance. It takes a strong support system.
Right, to be able to process the experience.
Yeah.
Cope with the emotional fallout.
Exactly.
And begin to rebuild their lives.
It's so important.
These resources sound invaluable.
Yeah.
It's reassuring to know that help is available for those who need it.
Absolutely.
This case has undoubtedly shaken this community.
Yeah.
What are some steps that schools and communities can take to prevent these kinds of incidents from happening in the future?
Well, prevention requires a multi-layered approach.
Okay.
Schools and communities need to create environments where children feel safe, empowered to speak up.
Right.
And they know that adults will listen
and
take action.
So what does that look like in practice?
Well, on a school level,
yeah,
comprehensive child protection policies are essential.
Okay.
We're talking background checks for all employees and volunteers, ongoing training for staff on how to recognize and report suspected abuse.
Right.
Clear protocols for responding to allegations.
Yeah. And beyond the school setting.
We also need to educate children about body safety, healthy boundaries, the importance of speaking up if they feel uncomfortable.
Right.
Parents, real givers, community members all play a crucial role.
It's a collective responsibility then.
It is. We can't just rely on schools or law enforcement.
Right. We all have a part to play.
Exactly. We need to break down those silos and work together.
Yeah.
That means open communication with kids, creating safe spaces for them to disclose abuse,
right,
and holding abusers accountable for their actions.
You mentioned that education is a big part of this.
It is.
Can you talk a bit more about what that should look like?
Sure. When it comes to kids, the focus should be age appropriate.
Right.
Education about body safety.
Yeah.
Healthy boundaries. Consent.
Okay.
This includes teaching them the proper names for body parts. Empowering them to say no to unwanted touch.
Right.
Encouraging them to tell a trusted adult if someone makes them feel uncomfortable.
And for adults?
For adults, the education should focus on recognizing those potential warning signs.
Okay.
Understanding grooming tactics.
Right.
Knowing how to report suspected abuse.
It sounds like we need to be having these conversations early and often.
Absolutely.
With kids and adults.
And they need to be ongoing.
Yeah, not a one-time thing.
Exactly. We need to continually reinforce these messages.
Right.
Create a culture where these topics are openly discussed.
Yeah.
Without shame or stigma.
This is a lot to take in.
It is.
But it's clear that this case has sparked important conversations. Yeah.
About child safety, the need for systemic change.
Absolutely.
As we kind of move forward here.
Yeah.
What are some of the key takeaways?
Well, I think the most important thing to remember is this.
Yeah.
We need to believe children when they disclose abuse. Too often, their voices are dismissed or silenced.
Right.
And that could be because of disbelief denial.
Yeah.
A desire to protect someone else.
Right.
But children rarely lie about abuse.
It's true.
If a child tells you something that raises concern, listen, believe them, and take action.
Our instinct might be to protect the people we know.
I know.
But ultimately, our responsibility is to protect the child.
Exactly.
What other steps can we take as individuals and as a society?
Well, education is key. Empower children with knowledge about body safety, healthy boundaries, consent.
Yeah.
We need to educate ourselves about the warning signs, grooming tactics, how to respond if a child discloses abuse.
And this needs to happen everywhere. In homes, in schools, in community organizations.
Creating a culture of prevention is a collective effort.
It is.
We can't just rely on certain institutions.
We all have to work together.
We all have to do our part.
Foster open communications, create safe spaces.
Yeah.
Hold abusers accountable.
This case has really underscored the need for those support systems.
It has.
We talked about resources for victims and their families.
Right.
But what about support for those who are impacted by these cases indirectly?
That's a great point.
Friends, family members.
Secondary trauma is real.
It is.
And it's important to acknowledge that these cases impact a wide circle of people.
Right.
And, it's crucial for those who are struggling to seek support.
Therapy support groups, just talking to someone they trust.
Exactly.
Before we wrap up, I want to acknowledge the incredible strength and courage of these victims who came forward in this case.
It's amazing.
Speaking out about abuse is never easy, especially when the abuser is someone in a position of authority or trust.
Absolutely.
Their bravery has likely prevented other children from being harmed.
Absolutely. And to anyone listening out there who may be struggling with the effects of abuse, please know you are not alone. Healing is possible. There are resources available to support you on your journey.
If you or someone you know needs help, please reach out to the National Sexual Assault Hotline.
That's right.
At 800-656-4673.
You are not alone.
You are not alone. This has been a difficult but necessary conversation.
It has.
But the details of this case are specific to one community.
Right.
But these lessons we've learned have far-reaching implications for all of us.
Absolutely.
By working together to raise awareness, educate ourselves and our children, advocate for change, we can create a world where children are safer from harm.
I couldn't agree more. The fight against child sexual abuse is ongoing.
It is.
But together we can make a difference.
Thank you for joining us for this deep dive.
Thank you.
Let's keep this conversation going.
Yes.
Work together to create a brighter future for all children.
Welcome back to the deep dive. And in this final part of our conversation, you know about the Anna Maria Crocker case. We're really going to kind of step back and look at the bigger picture here. You know, we've covered the specifics, the allegations, the legal landscape, the resources, the importance of prevention.
Right.
And now I really want to get your thoughts on kind of what this case reveals about the broader issue of child sexual abuse and what we can learn from it as a society.
You know, you're right. This case really has, I think, shown a light on some uncomfortable truths that we as a society often try to avoid.
Right.
You know, it forces us to confront this reality that child sexual abuse is more prevalent than we want to believe, that it can happen anywhere, even in places where we assume children are safe. It's a tough pill to swallow, you know, especially for parents.
It is.
Who are out there trying their best to protect their kids.
Right.
I mean, we send our children to school with this expectation that they'll be cared for and kept safe.
Right.
And this case really just shatters that sense of security.
I understand that feeling.
Yeah.
But I think it's important to remember that, you know, awareness is the first step toward prevention.
Okay.
We can't protect children from something that we're not willing to acknowledge exists.
So true.
So by shining a light on these issues, we can start to create a culture where abuse is less likely to occur and where victims feel empowered to come forward.
It's not about living in fear. It's about being informed and proactive.
Exactly.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, what are some of the most important takeaways you'd like listeners to kind of remember as we go forward?
You know, I think the most crucial message here is we need to believe children when they disclose abuse. Too often their voices are dismissed or silenced.
Right.
And, you know, that could be out of disbelief denial.
Right. A desire to protect someone else.
Exactly. But children rarely lie about abuse.
Right.
So if a child tells you something that raises concerns, it is our duty as adults to listen and believe them and take action.
Our instinct might be to protect the people we know and love.
I know, it's hard.
But ultimately, our responsibility is to protect the child.
It is.
What other steps can we take as individuals and as a society?
Well, education is key.
Okay.
We need to empower children with knowledge about body safety, healthy boundaries, consent from a young age.
Yeah.
We also need to educate ourselves as adults about the warning signs, grooming tactics, how to respond appropriately if a child discloses abuse.
Yeah.
And this education needs to happen everywhere, in homes and schools and community organizations.
It sounds like creating that culture of prevention is a collective effort.
It really is.
We can't just rely on schools or law enforcement.
We all have to work together.
We all have a part to play.
Absolutely.
This case has really underscored the importance of having those support systems in place.
It has.
We talked about resources for victims and families.
Right.
But what about support for those who were impacted by these cases indirectly?
That's a great point.
You know, like friends, family members even.
Yeah. Secondary trauma is real.
It is.
We need to acknowledge that these cases impact a much wider circle of people.
Right.
So, you know, if you're out there struggling, it's crucial to seek support.
Therapy support groups, talking to someone you trust.
Whatever it takes.
I want to take a moment to acknowledge the incredible strength and courage of these victims.
But absolutely.
You know who came forward?
It's amazing.
In this case,
so brave.
Speaking out about abuse is never easy.
It's not.
Especially when the abuser is someone in a position of authority or trust.
Especially then, yeah.
Their bravery has likely prevented other children from being harmed.
Absolutely. And to anyone listening out there who may be struggling with the effects of abuse, please know you're not alone.
You're not alone.
Healing is possible, and there are resources available to support you on your journey.
If you or someone you know needs help,
please reach out.
Please don't hesitate to reach out to the National Sexual Assault Hotline at 800-656-4673.
You are not alone.
This deep dive into the Anna Maria Crocker case has been a difficult but necessary conversation.
It has.
But while the details of this case are specific to one community, the lessons we've learned have far-reaching implications for all of us.
They do.
By working together to raise awareness, educate ourselves, and our children advocate for change, we can create a world where children are safer from harm.
I couldn't agree more.
Thank you for joining us for this deep dive.
Thank you for having me.
Let's keep these conversations going and work together to create a brighter future for all children.